franchise that is the crux of why we are fans. The rich, amazing history of a team that reflects the attitude of this town's people and embodies the spirit of everyone sitting in these seats. But when we step back and look, there is one thing that from Philadelphia to Wilmington, from Haverford to Pennsauken, from Westchester to Allentown, cuts through it all and bonds us, every one of us. Every fall, it is the Eagles green that runs through the veins of the young and old, and the divides that exist between races and creeds, rich and poor, the 700 level and the lower bowl are all gone, and we are suddenly one.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 9 of Fandemonium here on the AAT Sports Network and AAT Birds. I am Chip at Chip for the Birds, and we are joined today by the one, the only Mr. Fourth and John himself, Mr. Eagles Sessions, Gayle Saunders. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm excited, man. The Fandemonium part of my soul gets to come out today. It's a pleasure, man. I love what you guys are doing with the platform over here, and it's a pleasure to be here to talk about the Birds.
Yeah, man, that's what we do. So I have to ask here because I watched the intro video now. This will be the 9th time that I've watched it, and I watched pretty closely. Were you in the intro video? Did Johnny sneak you in somewhere?
I don't think so, but I was definitely the blood was starting to boil through the body. I was like, yeah, just the from Wilmington to Pennsauken, like you got me. I was like, let's go, let's go. Like I was ready to, yeah, man. I love.
How is it so far away from the season?
Yeah, man. But I mean, for us, it's like every day. So like it's every day is, I'm counting down the days, but I'm still geeked about the season. It's not even here yet.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so let's do this first. So why don't you first tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you do? Because we mentioned Fourth and John, and I mean, it's almost at this point becoming synonymous with the Philadelphia Eagles. Like you guys have kind of blown up into this huge podcasting platform. So talk a little bit about what it is that you do and the success that you guys have had with it.
Yeah, it was back in 2016, me and E had started it. I know recently, like he had stepped away, but we've continued to keep move forward and do Eagle content and podcasts, and it's just been from the very get-go. Doing Fourth and John was about bringing the fans closer to the team that they love, and just enjoying that experience, the brotherly love, and just a lot of the events that we put on, whether it's tailgates like you see here. We met so many great players families. That's Darius Slay's wife, just really great people, and the whole thing that we it's really about just love, man. Just sharing your love for the Eagles, your fandom, telling the stories of how you became an Eagle fan. Shout out to Gio and his family. I've seen these people grow as I've got an opportunity to mentor a lot of content creators, so it's been a great time just being around Eagle fans, man. And it's really been a nice ride. Just to talk about Evan and Prime, who've been on our show, down there cooking cheesesteaks for people. It's when you get that moment with Eagle fans from across the world, and they tell you their stories and how they got there, or just I could see it in their eyes that they're excited to see their Birds at a game, and that's some moment you get to share. But there's been a lot of great experiences that we've. I always talk about making experiences. Mm-hmm. So whether it's showing up, traveling, I think that's the biggest part of Fourth and John, that we try to bring people together, create content from a standpoint where only the diehards get it. Like I like to say that I'm a fanalist. Like I'm
okay. I like that.
I have an analyst background. I was with NBC Sports as a draft analyst before I even started Fourth and John back in the day. But I knew I wanted to get closer. My father grew up in Philly. I have tons of family in Philly. I grew up in Connecticut. He used to work in the Philadelphia shipyards. He built submarines in Connecticut. So that's how I got in Connecticut. I was fighting for this team for my entire life. So I mean, it's something that's been built in me since I was a young kid. But just overall, Fourth and John is giving us an opportunity to do a lot of cool things, meet a lot of great people, and make a lot of people smile about their Eagles. So I think that's I could always be proud of that.
So you mentioned like a lot of the cool experiences you had. So if you had to pick, I don't not necessarily want to say like your top one because that could be tough. So give me your top three coolest Eagles experiences that you've been able to have because of the things that you do.
There's been so, man, there's been so, like, there's one of them. I mean, I got a moment where this thing I've been saying a long time, like speaking into existence. Like that's the one thing on Fourth and John I've always said for years, speak into existence. It's that moment where I'm on the cover of Philadelphia Inquirer, right? That was the Inquirer, right? Yeah. So
I think so. Daily News, one of the two.
Was the day? Yeah. Now I feel bad because I don't remember. But we're sitting out there, and I'm telling the guys before the game starts that someone's gonna jump in our laps. I was like, here we are. Someone's gonna jump in our laps. So it's coming down to the end of the game, and they're like looking at me and say, "Oh, no one's jumped in our laps." I was like, "Yeah, we got a minute left." All of a sudden, you know, Nigel Bradham picks a fumble up with 20 seconds left in the game, and I'm like, "Holy shit, it's gonna!" And I'm like, "Come, please, come." And he runs straight and jumps right into our laps. The whole team follows him. I get punched in the head by Fletcher Cox as he jumps over the pile. And we brought a fan. Fan won a contest. We brought him to the game with us, and you know he had a great time. I'm sorry that I had to use him as a stepping stool to get up onto the top. And I'm sorry, Dario. I'm sorry about that moment, but just sharing that moment with him. Those are, cool experiences. The Football Fanatic USA Today show, USA Network, did a show that we were part of. That was a cool experience. I think winning the Super Bowl on my birthday was probably imparting on Broad Street. That was sensational. That was a moment that I'll never forget. We recently had Brian Dawkins on our podcast this year, and that was kind of like, I met his family at the Hall of Fame, and we were holding up a sign, and this woman comes up, it's like, "Hey, baby, where'd you get that sign from?" And I turn around, and I'm like, "Connie?" she's like, "How do you know who I am?" I'm like, "You're just like the backbone to Brian Dawkins, blah, blah, blah." She's like, "Without you, there's no, Weapon X, Brian Dawkins." And she's like, "How about I make a deal? You make one of those signs. I get that one signed. I'll get the sign signed for you. And all you have to do is get this sign, sent to us. And come to find out in the interview, it's hanging up in Brian Dawkins' gym." God. And I'm like, "Get out." I'm like, I remember I was just like, I was like, "You have that hanging up in your gym?" He's like, "Yeah, I see it every day." I'm like, this is amazing. But besides that, just meeting so many Eagle fans, I think I have so many friends that I've met through this platform. So those great experiences and the friendships are something I cherish.
So you mentioned, growing up in Connecticut, and it's kind of been this Eagles fandom has been instilled in you since you were a kid. So jogging your memory here, what is the very first thing you remember? What's your first Eagles memory that you remember?
I'm trying to think, like one moment where it was just like, I'd say, Randall Cunningham, whether it was the Pepper Johnson, where he Byers points, I mean, Randall points and Byers takes him out, and it's just like those moments where I'm hearing like John Madden, Pat Summerall like talk about um just being infatuated with the Eagles and not being able, like at first, like I was trying to be a fan of other teams as a younger kid.
Sure.
And my dad's like, no, you're going to be Eagle fan. I was like, but you named me after Gayle Saunders, the great Chicago Bear running back. 85 Bears are hot. I'm a little kid. I'm like easily swayed here. I could be a Bears fan. And he's like, nah, you're going to be Eagle fan. So just finding that moment with Randall Cunningham and just like, this is where I knew I was a fan. Like this is when I knew I was going to be a fan. Someone sent Randall Cunningham broke his leg, and that year they were about to, you know, I thought they were going to win the Super Bowl. I was like, this is their year.
Yeah.
He breaks his leg, and I was in tears, man. I was upset. Somebody sent me a posable like a Randall Cunningham doll in the mail, anonymous, with they cut the leg and snapped it.
Oh my God.
And they sent it to my house. And like, mind you, I live around at the time in Connecticut. It was Giants, Cowboys, Steelers fans. No one liked the Patriots because they weren't winning Super Bowls. So somebody sent that into the mail. And so I open up the mail and I'm looking at it and I'm crying. And my dad's like, son, what you crying for? I said, somebody sent me a Randall Cunningham doll. You know, like I'm showing him the thing. I mean, even my dad was just like, man, that's kind of evil. So I mean, he's like, son, you're an Eagle fan. So then I was like, did you
your
send
first
it?
experience of pain? Oh, like serious pain and an injured quarterback, and that's when you went, yeah, I must be an Eagles fan.
Because my love for that, after that, it was like I'm at school fighting people. Like that was I would get enraged when people would pick on me. They're like, why? Everyone's like, why do you like the Eagles so much? It's like you've never even been to a game. I was like, I just love this team. So as I progressed and got, you know, I didn't start tailgating until later because I was always playing football. I played football in college, and it was just always like I never really tailgated. So the whole tailgating experience turned into like it was like being at church the first time. So, you know, like being at the link, and now, you know, I'm almost at 15, 14 games a year if I can. The experience is like every game is like going to church every week. It's just like, it's a great experience.
So you mentioned these experiences and you mentioned these memories. So, and you've talked a lot already about some of the things that you personally have gotten to do because of Fourth and John. Then, I mean, already I'm like in awe. But what is your favorite? And we're going to exclude the Super Bowl victory because that's the easy one. That's the easy one. So what is your favorite Eagles memory?
Favorite Eagles memory. Does it have to be game or something around the Eagles?
And anything you want. You just can't be like, oh, they won the Super Bowl, because that's how we all feel. Like, finally.
Well, I did. Yeah, it's like even winning on my birthday is kind of epic.
That's huge. That's why it's like we already know that's the one.
Okay, what I'd say, man, there's been a lot, man. Like it's hard to like. I'm just trying to come off the top. I mean, getting an opportunity to like, you know, cover the Eagles. You know, we had gotten picked up by NBC Philly. We were with them for 2 years, but there was a moment where, you know, I always used to joke to my guys. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna be the next Ray Didinger. I was like, you can call me Blackinger. I'm gonna. That was my inside joke. I'm like, and the you know, putting in the work, and then you're in this opportunity to talk about the Eagles, and it was one of our first times, times being on air on NBC Philly, and to talk about the Eagles. So you go to the green room, and a guy that you've kind of idolized as a content creator, he's a guy who I respect for his knowledge of the game, I respect him for his research. I'm in the green room with Ray Didinger. So it's
who literally like wrote the book on the Eagles. Like he literally writes books about the Eagles.
And I'm sitting there just watching him prep the books that he has. I'm looking at it like, what is he doing? Like, and I'm trying to be cool. Like, I'm like, that scene from like, what's the movie with Samuel L. Jackson and Pulp Fiction? Like, be cool, bitch, be cool, baby. Like, I was just like, internally, I was like, and then it was just like, we started talking to him. I was in there with E, and it was just kind of like, he was like, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm in his. I didn't want to be like in his presence, but it was that Fandemonium,
right?
Where you're like, okay, I'm here, and I thought about the journey of getting there, and just it was a cool experience. And then randomly a couple months ago, there's a book signing, and I was randomly at some in by Allentown or like Bethlehem. And someone's like, I'm in a place, getting a smoothie of all places. I'm just getting a smoothie. This dude's like, hey, are you here for the book signing? And I'm like, what book signing? Like, previously, early in the day, I was on another person's podcast and I was telling about what Ray Didinger meant to me and how, he inspired me to do a lot of things in my sports writing career and everything. And then, he's like, yeah, Ray Didinger is signing books across the way at Barnes and Nobles. And it was just like, I was just talking about him like 15 minutes ago. I'm here. So I go across and, I get his signed book and he signs it for me. And I just tell him about the experience that he's like, oh yeah. Like I remember. And I'm like, it's just crazy that, it was a cool experience. It's one of them.
That's
one
awesome.
of many. One of many.
That's really cool. So as we continue our trip down memory lane here, and I feel like I know where you're going to go with this, but who is your all-time favorite Eagle and why?
I mean, it's you could there's a couple. Like it's hard to say. I know Randall Cunningham was one of the guys that really hooked me. Like he got me in love with the Eagles. Reggie White, that defense was like, and I feel bad. I feel so bad for Eagle fans that weren't able to see that team or see Randall, and that's one of the things. Like I look at Ray Didinger, and I'm like, the eras of different eras and the knowledge and the depth of the texture of his he knows so much about, and he's seen so much. So like I started to feel like, as I'm getting older, I'm like, this is what it is. Like, but I do feel bad that you didn't get to see the club from Reggie White and him throwing linemen around like rag dolls. I mean, it was just a very different time, and Buddy Ryan was just a very different coach in an era where you could go hunt for people.
You could go play defense, right?
Or just like, I mean, it was great to see. If I'm being present with like, Brian Dawkins, his energy, his magnetism, his ability to inspire, like sitting there at Hall of Fame, I mean, you get in a car with your buddies and you travel, I don't know, 13 hours and smelling like
13 hours a car. Yeah.
Smelling like beef jerky and farts, and to go to the Hall of Fame to hear him speak. And, I'm like, why am I crying, dude? Like, you can't explain it, but you realize what that player meant to you. And then the fact that you get to interview him later on in your career. I mean, that just seeing Brian Dawkins get inducted, I was like, bro, that's like family that just got inducted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I understand what you're saying, because we've even had opportunities where we've had a chance to interview some of these people. And I'm like, I watched you on TV. I cheered for you. I rooted for you. And here we are having a conversation. Like, this is cool.
Yeah.
And you try and do like the professional thing, like, oh yeah. But in your mind, you're like, what? Like Dave Akers was in my living room. Like, I mean, virtually, of course, but like Dave Akers was in my living room. Like, we were just chatting. and it was cool. So I get that kind of out of body experience that you're talking about a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like living in the moment, and kind of like you just we recently got to interview Chris Long and just talk about his his ride and his journey as a Philadelphia Eagle, and just like just connecting with, just asking any question you want to ask him, and just getting some insight on what it was like for that team to win a Super Bowl. It was very just he's another guy. Was only here a short period of time, but I thought his impact on our team was tremendous. And getting to tell him some stories about, like, Elijah Quall showed up to our tailgate. I was like, "Aren't you playing? Or aren't you?" He's like, "Yeah, well, I'm not playing today." But this was like the Minnesota game, and he's out here hanging out with us. And I was like, "Yo, I gotta ask him questions." And he was talking about how Chris Long kind of like was I was like, "Who's the like lifeblood of the team right now?" He's like Chris Long. To him, he's like, he's the funniest dude on the team. He's just like, he's a guy that keeps us all together and keeps it light, and just like, and I started to think about, like, the Fletcher Coxes of the world and what those guys meant, like, physically gifted, but like a guy like Chris Long, who is providing like comedic commentary, and his role that he played with Malcolm Jenkins, and how that all came together. And he told us about like how him and Malcolm weren't really close yet, but after that moment it brought them, he's like, to another level as brothers. And you talk about that Super Bowl run in that team. There's so many like guys and characters that liked each other, and the bond was like so tremendous that, like, you could talk about talent all day and whatever, but at the end of the day, the bond and the brotherhood is what really propelled that team to do great things. So just talking to Chris Long about that was kind of cool.
All right, so you've been an Eagles fan for a minute or two now. And even when you were living in Connecticut and, not around the people of Philadelphia. So what is it about the Philadelphia Eagles that make them the best team and the best fan base in football?
I think it's just like the level of passion. It's like, seeing it firsthand, seeing it at game day, seeing it during that Super Bowl run, seeing an old grandmother who's working a toll booth want to stop and talk about the Eagles, and just like you going into Wawa and you're like, this is like heaven. I was like, everyone's got their gear on, everyone wants to talk about it. I lived in Jersey for 20 years, and since the pandemic, I've been in Wilmington, Delaware for the last 2 years, and living in Bethlehem part-time. But just seeing the different, like, it's just crazy, man. If also like going to like Lehigh that's another experience where, like,
that's what I miss. Yeah.
Like, again, I feel bad for like I'm like, that was like Mecca as well, but it's just like Eagle fans are like, you see that passion and you're just like, man, this is. But then you want to, like, I don't want to be like self-centered and but again, when you travel around the country following your team, I'm like, we're in Tampa, no one's tailgating it. It's like games at 1. This is playoffs here,
right?
And it's like almost 10:30, and the vibe is whack. You just see it all over the place, and they're like
different.
you go to stadiums and they're like, the fans will be like, where did y'all come from? Or like, you'll be in the stands and like, oh, you guys are real. Like, taking over Carolina and being in the stadium, and like, people were just looking at all these Eagle fans like, where did you guys come from? So I've seen that, and at the end of the day, like, again, like, the passion, like this guy showed up to my tailgate from Guatemala. His dad was a doctor in Philadelphia. He was only here for like 2 years, but his dad raised him onto the Eagles. was in Guatemala. He brought me some coffee from Guatemala. He's like, "Hey man, I'm just bringing you a gift." You know, like I just like, and you're just talking to him like, bro. He's like, listen to your podcast. I'm like, from Guatemala, and you're bringing me coffee, and we're sitting there breaking bread over the Eagles, and like this dude is like. So we picked him up. I said, "Hey man, this is his first time at a tailgate." So we're lifting him up in the air like. This nobody knows this dude from Jack, but his experience is like he's like living his best life at that day, and man, like the passion is unrivaled.
And that's the answer that most of the people have said, and because I do think that that's what it is. That's why when the Eagles are playing away games, they're not really away games. Like it's just not at the link.
No, you're seeing family members. You're like, "Oh, you're here. Come see me." Or like friends, you're like, "Come see me." Like that's really what it is. And as we've gotten an opportunity to travel and really just like break bread with people, like they're like, "You're you're doing a tailgate on the road." I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" Just having those moments. Like then the next season, they come up and you're
Right.
creating these memories with. Like people's like family members. Like one guy, he tailgates with us all the time. We were in Tampa, and his brother had never tailgated with us. He's like, so he sent his brother to us. He had no one to hang out with. He showed up to our event, and then I did on the spur of the moment. I put a tweet out. I'm like, this place in Tampa gave us a spot to party, and within 5 hours, like 100 Eagle fans showed up. Just to party and hang out, and we're just like, we don't know you from Jack, we don't know you from Jack, but we're gonna have a good time in Tampa, not knowing plot twist that we're gonna get our asses kicked 2 days from now. But just that experience, and my friend's like, "Hey man, my brother had a great time, and he met a lot of great people," and then the next day he shows up with other fans that he met at this event. So those kind of things are like, to me, little things to some, but those things mean a lot to me.
And I love it. I mean, like we said, we started doing this specific show just to get the conversation going because there are so many shared memories and shared stories and just talking about that fandom. So tell the people who have watched a little bit about where they can find you, where they can follow you, and what it is that you do in case they do not know.
You can find me at Eagle Sessions. You might have seen some memes over the years. Kind of toned it down a little bit, but
a little bit.
You could catch us up 4th and John. My partners over there, Evan Hollywood Hearn and Prime. We do work with Chris Malley. He's a phenomenal draft scout. We have Mal Davis as well. He's a phenomenal scout as well. It's a little bit of Eagles, I'd say. We talk about the Eagles, we talk about the culture, we talk about the vibes, we talk about everything in detail. We really get into every facet of Eagle fandom. And it's not from just a fan perspective. Again, I have an analyst background, so I can dig deep and talk about Eagle sneakers. I can talk about I customize sneakers as well. But it's just really just you can find me on social media talking about Eagles. We're at 4th and John at all socials. And you can find us at 4thandjohn.com where we post a lot of our content. But overall, you can find us at a tailgate if you don't have a tailgate. If you don't have friends to tailgate with, we take care of you. We're sponsored by Bud Light, and we're sponsored by Conchi Bakery. They supply tomato pies for us. And Creative Vibe, shout out to our DJ Lowski. We have our own DJ. And we really set a vibe for you guys to come and just have a good time and enjoy the experience for the first time. If it's your first time tailgating, or if it's your 50th time tailgating, if you want to have a free, good time, that's what we're there for.
I love it. Well, Gayle, I want to thank you for being guest number 9 on Fandemonium here on the AAT Sports Network.
Nick Foles.
You're lucky number 9.
I like
You're
that.
Lucky number 9. So I'm Chip. This has been Gayle Saunders. And as we end every show here on the AAT Sports Network with a very positive and a very happy